So during today's webinar, we are going to be going over a few things. We're going to be talking about eligibility for the grant. We are going to be talking a little bit about permits and insurance for park events. We'll be talking about the events themselves and providing some ideas. We'll go over what we are looking for in the applications. We'll talk a bit about the application process, remind you of some important dates, and then have time for questions at the end. So in terms of eligibility, the geographical limits are limited to 9 cities. So your group must be located in one of the following cities. The cities are on the screen there: Metro Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg, the Greater Toronto Area, the National Capital Region, which includes Ottawa and Gatineau, Montreal, Quebec City, and Halifax Regional Municipality. We do have maps on the FAQ section of our website, of the TD Park People Grants website. So at this time, the grants are limited to these specific areas, but we'd love to hear if your group is outside that area, as the program is expanding, and it's always great to have feedback. We have increased in the past the cities in where we can offer the granting program, and moving forward, we would love to be able to offer it to more cities. So we're keeping an ongoing list of inquiries from outside these areas, and to help us look at where the needs are. So in terms of the event dates, the grant is for hosting 3 events between April 18th and December 31st. And new this year is one of the events must take place on June 20th, 2020. So this date marks the beginning of summer, and we're going to be celebrating a nationwide park day. So all of the 92 TD Park People grantees will celebrate vibrant parks across the country. The day will be promoted through Park People's social media channels and through a media relations effort. So it's going to be it's going to be an exciting day with all kinds of different events happening across the whole country. If this date does pose a challenge, you can make a note of this on your application and propose a different day for a 3rd event, but with the understanding that we are ideally looking for organizations that are able to do an event on the 20th of June. And then the other 2 dates are free to select. So in terms of the kinds of groups that are eligible, the following types of groups are eligible. So we encourage grassroots community groups that include volunteer-based park groups, local agencies, resident associations, nonprofit groups active in their local parks. Partnerships of any or all of the above are definitely encouraged to apply. A few other considerations is that your group demonstrates an ongoing commitment to caring for the park's green space, and that your group can demonstrate an ability to sustain yourself beyond the grant cycle. And then a note about previous grant recipients. You are eligible, if you have received a TD Park People grant in the past, you are eligible to apply again. But we would like to support as many new groups as possible. So in cases of comparable application, preferences will be given to applicants who haven't previously received the grant. And if you did receive a grant in 2018 or 2019, we'll just be looking for new events and ideas than what was previously funded. So something different than what happened in the previous years. So the types of spaces that are eligible. So Parks and green spaces is a pretty broad category, but they need to be public spaces that are readily accessible to the public. So examples include city parks, but also social housing properties, school grounds, public plazas, and other urban green spaces that are publicly accessible. Private property or green spaces that are not open to the public aren't eligible, but if you have questions about your specific park or green space, do get in touch with us to confirm the eligibility. And it's also should abide by local laws and permit requirements, and I'll talk a little bit about that in the next few slides. So in terms of eligible expenses, so there's a list of some eligible expenses, which include honoraria for volunteers, materials for the event, supplies and equipment, printing of promotional materials, permit and insurance costs. And a note that up to 75% of the $2,000 can be spent on human resources, and the remaining 25% for event costs and supplies and equipment. So the budget template is fairly straightforward on the application form. It's a chart where you can fill out your predicted expenses along with any notes. And if you're receiving other funding sources, we also have a second chart for you to let us know about those. And just the more detail you can provide us, the better. I've a note that that's as far as the budget eligibility goes. So that's that. For permits and insurance, so we just like to note this, that your events may or may not require a permit for the space where they are being held, but we have learned from experience that in order to ensure success, this is great research to do ahead of time, to take a close look at the permitting requirements for your city, including any fees or associated processing time. So your parks department for your municipality will have more information about this. We do have we've provided a list of links to the various departments in each city that we're going to share with you, that Steph is sharing with you, so you can follow along there to get in touch with your municipality. And if you're a small group and you haven't organized events in a park before, you may have more questions about the insurance piece. So maybe look for a partner in your neighborhood, maybe a higher capacity NGO or group that could give you advice or include you in their insurance.
Great. So I'm going to be going over some more of the event criteria and discussing a little bit about how we're going to be assessing the grants. So just keep in mind that your event must be free, so meaning that there's no charge of admission or an entry fee to participate in any of your events. However, you may have vendors or food for sale as a component of your event. Events must be accessible and inclusive to everyone, and they must also have an environmental component. So this could be through environmental education, a commitment to sustainability practices, or stewardship activities. The environmental component can be just an element of a larger event, or it can be the main focus of your event. So we're going to give examples of what this could look like over the next few slides. Environmental education as a component of your event can raise awareness about the green space you're in and the value of taking care of it. So you may decide to host a nature walk or a workshop on climate change. This picture is also a reminder that events can happen throughout all seasons. So if you're able to provide an event during the fall or winter seasons, we encourage you to do so. Your event could also demonstrate a commitment to sustainability practices in general. So perhaps your event is centered around something else, like a music concert or a movie night. You could decide to make the event a zero waste event or a carbon neutral event as a way to demonstrate your commitment to environment. The other way you can demonstrate an environmental component is through direct stewardship activities. So this could be a park cleanup or a planting event, or you could work to clean up or care for a community garden in your local park or green space. And then a couple other things we'd like to mention. This grant, or the grant, can go towards existing programming, and you can receive a TD Park People grant while receiving other grants or other funding for the event itself. There's a space on the application where you're required to indicate other funding sources. So if you have anything else, any other funding sources, just be sure to note it here. You can also apply to host 3 of the same events. So for example, 3 nature walks as your 3 different dates. But one of the things we're looking for in the application is creativity. So if you're planning to host 3 of the same events, just think about ways that you can approach each event creatively. So maybe reaching different audiences like seniors or youth at each of the events. And then to give you an idea of what we're looking for in applications, I'm just going to go over some of the criteria that we're using to assess grant applications. So of course, there's that environmental stewardship component that I just talked about. We're looking to see the ways in which groups are making stewardship creative in order to better engage their community. We're looking for creativity in event ideas. So something unique or interesting or something that we haven't necessarily seen before. Geographic diversity is another one. Because we have so many applications in each of the cities we're working in, we like to make sure there's representation in different neighborhoods so that we don't have 5 different projects in the same neighborhood in Edmonton, for example. So we like to see a spread across the city and working in different neighborhoods. Reach, so how many people the events aim to reach. Events of all sizes are eligible, but we're looking to see events that reach a larger audience if possible. Inclusion and accessibility. In your application, your group should mention how your event will be inclusive and reach a diverse audience. So we encourage you to involve and or reach out to underserved, marginalized, or equity-seeking groups in order to involve a more diverse audience. You could involve your community or local neighborhood in the event planning and organization process. We want to see that you're making an effort to represent community interests to the fullest extent possible. And try meeting people where they are. So for instance, you could host events in green spaces surrounding community housing complexes, or get youth involved by hosting your event in green spaces where youth and young people tend to hang out. And the final criteria is strength of application. So we want to know that your events are feasible. Groups should try to demonstrate that they're capable of pulling off events, especially all 3 events. And so in your application, try to describe your past event experience and make a compelling argument describing your 3 proposed events.
So now I'm going to just talk a little bit about the application process itself. So there's a few steps in accessing the application form. So the first is to create a profile on our online map. So this map serves a few great uses. One of them is that it can help people in your neighborhood find your park group. So people can enter their address in the search bar to find out what's happening right in their area. It can also be a tool for you to see what's happening in other parks across the country. By joining the map, you are part of a network of over 500 other groups involved in animating and activating their local parks. And just to note that if your group is already on the map, please try not to create a second profile. So get in touch with us if you need any help updating your existing profile, and we can help you out with that. In some cities, many of our cities, we have a lot of groups applying. So another piece of advice is to take a look at the map, maybe zoom in on maybe type in the address of your park or where your group is based, and take a look to see who else is around you, what other groups are already active, what they're doing in their parks. And this could be a great opportunity for a partnership, so you can make those connections there. So you're going to create your group's profile. So be sure to include important details like the name of your group, what parks you're animating, a concise description of your group, some contact information if you have any social media or website, to have that up there. The other function of the map is that if you don't yet have a presence online, this map profile can be somewhere that you can direct people to as your web page. So once you have created a group profile, you will have access to a dashboard where you can download the application form. So that's the screen you see here is it should be the first thing you see after you create your group. You have the option to download the form. There's also a tab, a grants tab, where you can access the grants there. So you can download the application form. It's a PDF file. It's a fillable PDF file, so you can fill it out on your computer or you can print it out and fill it out there. And then you're going to submit it over email. Send it back to us to the email address on the screen. It's also on our website, and that's how you're going to submit the application. And once your, oh, sorry, I'm going to stick on the screen for a second. Once your application has been submitted, you'll receive a confirmation from us within a few business days confirming that we've received your application, and we'll be notifying all applicants of their outcome in early April or early to mid-April. And we also provide opportunity for feedback for applicants for commentary on their application form. So just a reminder of some important dates. The deadline for grant submission is March 2nd, Monday, March 2nd. Anytime between now and March 2nd is great. You can submit your application over email. So yes, in mid-April, we will notify all applicants of the outcome of their application, and then the checks for the full amount will be issued at that time, at the beginning of the season. And then the events will take place between April 18th and December 31st, with the 20th of June being our park day there, where we'll be celebrating all across the country.